Hi guys, welcome to the Watch Hobbyist channel. So tonight I've got for you a little comparison. Basically by the time you see this video, chances are I will have sold this Tudor. And that's not for any bad reason, it's a fantastic watch, but the main reason is that if you've seen my last video, you'll know that I actually won this particular watch that I'm holding in the right hand is a Kingston Mark II. I actually won that in a charity raffle. And they're very similar watches, obviously they're both sort of designed around a similar theme. The Tudor watch on the left here, which you see, is basically based around the original Tudor Submariner. Apart from one thing that they didn't completely match is the end links that I've seen in the pictures always seem to be a sort of straight across thing with a gap, whereas on the Black Bay you do actually get sort of a solid end link which meets the case all the way through. So that's the key difference, I would say, but and maybe the hands as well, I think those were actually different. But anyway, aside from that, it's a wonderful watch in its own right. I did review it in a previous video, and I did tell you exactly what I think of it, which is it's really nice and fantastic. Quality's excellent, really pleased with it. But you know, having two watches so similar in your collection, I tend to find that if I do that, I tend to not wear either because I can never decide between them. So if I've got one, I'll wear it, but if I've got two, I probably won't wear either of them too much. And that's what's kind of happened with the Tudor. I have worn it, it's a beautiful watch, but when this came along, I just knew that, you know, it's from past experience, there's not much point in having it alongside this one. Although I did sort of think it is possible, I just don't think, I'm thinking against it anyway. So the Tudor and the Kingston look similar. Quality wise, they are similar. Now you'll have seen in the previous video that this Kingston watch, sorry, on the right actually looks a little bit different, and the reason for that is in the kit with the Kingston you get this sort of plastic tough box which becomes a 3-watch carry case, and in that set you get sort of another dial, you get hands, you get extra gaskets, but you also get, as well as the original bracelet and case, sorry, you get a separate one. So basically that's what you're seeing here. So in the video last time you saw this watch, it had sort of a different bezel, but now I've changed the case over and I've got the nice red triangle at the top, which is what I really wanted actually, and what made me really make the decision on the Tudor. So I will be honest, the Tudor is the better watch. There's a difference that you can only really sort of feel. There's a difference in the way it wears, and it's just the more modern, up to date. It's got really good movement inside it that's really accurate. This one is not as accurate, the Kingston, but at the same time it is also 6 years old nearly, so you know, maybe that's just because it needs a service or something that it's not as accurate. But the Tudor has been a fantastic watch, there is no doubt about it. In terms of looks, they are very similar. You have the big crown, which relates to watches like the original sort of Submariners and Turnographs here, which you can see on this book in the background. So you had like the big crown, you had the red triangle, I hope that comes through. So red triangle, there you go, on that watch there. And I'll show you about this book in a short while as well if you just keep watching the video. So the two key features, like I say, big crown, red triangle. So red triangle I think is a really nice detail, it just gives it a little bit of colour to an otherwise sort of quite, I wouldn't say dull looking watch, but not particularly a colourful watch. And the big crown makes it really easy to wind the time, you know, set the time. It makes it easy to put the power into the movement. So you know, that's a really good feature. I think a lot of watches should have bigger crowns than you have these days because some of them are really fiddly. The luminescence between the two, actually the Kingston tends to win. It's blue for starters, so not green, and it also seems to really be very powerful and last for a good amount of time as well. So quite a bonus there, obviously. But the Tudor is still very good. It's just that until the Kingston came along, you know, this was absolutely brilliant, but then the Kingston is just a bit better. It's a bit more like a Seiko type of power to the loom. So I don't know what the difference is in compounds, but you know, they've done it right on the Kingston definitely. The Tudor is definitely the one that looks taller, but actually there's not much difference. It's just the design of the cases, to be honest. So on the right hand side here you have the Kingston, which has a bubble back type of case back. You have a thin case to it, and then you have the bezel and a dome crystal. On the left hand side you have the Tudor, which sort of has a slab sided tall case, but actually all that means is that it's a flat case back and it's just sort of concealing the case back there. So it actually sits really well on the wrist, the Tudor, because it's very flat against the wrist, and you still have the nice bezel and dome crystal design, and the dome of the crystal is actually, it starts off a little bit taller as well on the Tudor, but obviously they're very similar, but they're just not totally identical by any means. You know, so obviously with the Kingston you get the incredible package as well, which is all the extras. So the extra bits that I mentioned before, which are like the dial, the extra case, bracelet, which you see here. With the Tudor you do get some extra bits, so no matter which version you choose, I believe you get the NATO strap. So there is something extra there in there for you, but you know, it's not quite like the Kingston, which comes with loads of parts which make it feel like it will last forever even if Kingston run out of parts. So two sort of similar watches but different, both with 60-minute good clicks to the bezels, you know, both with good movements, both with nice dial designs, everything. The Tudor does have 3D markers, which you can hopefully see there, whereas the Kingston, it's sort of the luminescence is just painted directly onto the dial, which I can't remember which is more accurate, but I think the Kingston is more accurate to sort of certainly the Submariners of the 1950s, like the 6538, the Bond Submariner. So yeah, I've made the decision to shift on the Tudor, but only because I won this. If it would have been the other way around and I'd won the Tudor, then I would have kept the Tudor and shifted this on. So it was purely because it's better to have one watch that looks like this rather than two, and because I've managed to win one. Now I did say I would mention this book that I've got in the background here, and this is actually a book. Let me see if I can just adjust. Oh, actually no, you can see it. So this is a book. It's called Vintage Rolex Sports Models, and the reason I mention it is because somebody did ask me in one of my other videos what's the book that's showing the pictures of the Submariners, and in this book you have sort of all sorts of original watches from Rolex, mostly sports obviously because it's a sports book, but there are other books which aren't sports, and there are some which mix things. I've actually got another one which is a mix, but what you tend to get from these books is, if you are looking for a vintage Submariner or something like that, obviously you can get Omega ones and all sorts, but if you are looking for that type of watch, it's a minefield. Trust me, I've been there, I've done it. There is a huge amount of learning curve with it, and what you read on the internet doesn't always tally with what you read in this book. So there's always a bit of discrepancy, and even with books like this you can still probably get it a little bit wrong, but you know, knowledge is key, knowledge is power, and when I was looking for watches, this really helped me out, because there was one watch that I found and I realised at some point that there was actually a bezel that was incorrect to that particular watch. So you've got more chance of not making a mess of things by buying a book like this. So you can get them on the internet. They are very expensive for what they are. Obviously it's a book, but when you think of what it could save you in a purchase, and also the amount of effort that's gone into producing this and getting the pictures of watches that just basically don't exist anymore, it must be an absolute nightmare to create a book like this. It will give you details such as this bezel perhaps here. So the final version of the turnograph bezel had a luminous bubble at the 12 o'clock position. So you know, it just gives you little insights into things. It gives you the period that the watches were made, it gives you a bit of a description, it gives you the bracelet, whether it's 20mm, 18mm, it tells you it's riveted here, it tells you the movement in the watch, and it obviously gives you the pictures as well, which I believe are real pictures of real watches. I don't think they're CGI, but I could be wrong. But overall, something like that could save you an absolute fortune. So I'm glad somebody did ask about this book, because actually it's pretty important to have something like that, in my opinion. So thanks for watching. I hope this was of use, and I hope you enjoyed it. And please do subscribe to the channel, because then you'll be updated about new videos that I'm bringing to you all the time. Thanks, and have a great day.